rubbed his eyes as he walked through the docking station. His shift had lasted 16 hours, and all he wanted was to get home. His buzzed again with another message from his sister Jinnah. She was worried about him working too much. He smiled and typed a quick reply as he walked. The station was busy even at this late hour. Aliens of every kind moved through the corridors. Some had 6 legs, others floated in containment suits, had worked here for 3 years and barely noticed them anymore. He just wanted to reach Transport 47C and sleep during the journey back to New Sol Colony. He turned left at Junction 7 and headed toward the docking bays. His eyes felt heavy. The signs above him blurred as he walked. Bay 45, Bay 46, Bay 47. He saw the number and walked straight to the airlock door. The door opened smoothly. That should have been his first warning. Transport ships usually had sticky doors that needed a good push, but was too tired to notice. He stepped inside and the door sealed behind him with a soft whisper. The corridor was beautiful. The walls seemed to glow with a soft blue light that came from within. They looked like they were made of crystal or glass, but warm to the touch. Stopped and stared. This was definitely not the cargo transport he usually took. Those ships smelled like oil and had metal walls covered in safety warnings. He turned back to the door, but it had already sealed completely. No handle, no control panel on this side. His stomach dropped. Wrong ship. He had boarded the wrong ship. Pulled out his and tried to send a message to station control. No signal. He tried the emergency channel. Still nothing. The ship's communication system was not compatible with his equipment. He walked forward because there was nowhere else to go. The corridor curved gently, and soft music seemed to come from the walls themselves. Not music exactly, more like a humming that felt peaceful and strange at the same time. The floor was smooth under his boots, and each step made no sound. After 5 minutes of walking, felt the ship move. The gentle vibration of engines coming to life traveled through the floor. His heart began to race. They were undocking. He was leaving the station on an alien ship, and nobody knew where he was. He started to run, looking for the bridge or any control room. The corridors branched and twisted like the inside of a seashell. Every turn looked the same. The blue glow, the crystal walls, the silence. He felt like he was inside a living thing rather than a machine. Then he heard voices. Soft, musical voices speaking a language he did not know. Ran toward the sound and burst into a large chamber. He stopped so suddenly he almost fell. The chamber was filled with people. No, not people, aliens, but they looked almost human. They were tall, much taller than him, with skin that seemed to shimmer in the blue light. Their eyes were large and silver. Their hair was long and moved like it was underwater, even though there was no wind. They were all women, dozens of them, all staring at him with wide eyes. The room went completely silent. Every single one of them stopped what they were doing and turned to look at. He stood frozen in the doorway, suddenly aware that he was breathing too loud, that his work uniform was dirty and torn at the sleeve, that he probably smelled bad after his long shift. One of them stepped forward. She was taller than the others, with silver hair that reached her waist. Her eyes were the color of moonlight. She wore a uniform that seemed to be made of the same crystal material as the walls. Her face showed an expression could not read. Shock, fear, hope. "A male," she whispered. Her voice was like wind through trees, and somehow understood the words even though she was not speaking his language. The ship must have a translator system built into it. The whisper spread through the chamber like fire. "A male, a male, a male." The women moved closer, forming a circle around him. Their silver eyes were shining, and saw something in those eyes that made his skin go cold. Hunger. Not the hunger of predators looking at prey, but something deeper. Something that had been waiting for a very, very long time. "Please," the tall woman said, and realized she was their leader. "Do not be afraid. We will not harm you, but tell us, how is this possible? Where did you come from?" His mouth was dry. "I'm human," he managed to say. "From the station, I boarded the wrong ship. This is a mistake. I need to go back." The leader's face changed. Her eyes became sad and something else, desperate. "I am Commander," she said, "and I am afraid going back is not possible. We have already left the station. We are headed toward the fold and our journey cannot be stopped." She paused and her voice became softer. "You said you are human, from Earth." "Yes, well, my grandparents were from Earth. I was born on New Sol Colony." A sound went through the chamber. It was like 100 people letting out breath they had been holding for years. Some of the women had tears running down their faces. Others were shaking. One younger-looking woman in the back fell to her knees. "Commander," said, trying to stay calm. "What's happening? What's wrong? Why are you all looking at me like that?" Closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, saw centuries of pain in them. "Because," she said quietly, "you are the first male any of us have seen in 500 years." The words did not make sense. Shook his head. "That's impossible. You must have men on this ship. Your species must have." "Our males are extinct," interrupted. "All of them. Every single one. We are all that remains of the people. 3,000 women on this ship, searching for a cure we never found, searching for a home we may never reach." She stepped closer to him and saw that her hands were shaking. "And now you are here," she whispered, "a male on our ship, after 500 years of nothing but hope and hunger and darkness." Her silver eyes locked onto his. "Tell me of New Soul. Do you believe in miracles?" Sat in what called the meditation chamber, trying to process everything she had told him. The room was quiet, with walls that changed color from blue to green to purple like a slow heartbeat. He had been on the ship for 6 hours now, and nothing felt real. Commander had given him time to rest and think, but his mind would not stop racing. 500 years, 3,000 women, the last of their species. The words kept spinning in his head like a broken machine. The door opened with a soft sound and a young woman entered. She was shorter than the others, barely taller than himself, with silver hair cut short around her face. She carried a tray with food and water. "Hello," she said shyly. Commander asked me to bring you food. She thought you might be hungry." Realized he had not eaten in almost 20 hours. "Thank you." She set the tray down on the crystal table and stood there, staring at him with wide eyes. "I have never seen a male before," she said. "Only in the old videos from our. You look different than I imagined." "How old are you?" asked, picking up something that looked like fruit. 127 years old, said. "I am the youngest person on the ship." Almost dropped the fruit. "You're 127. Our bodies age slowly," explained. "The life extension technology keeps us alive, but each generation gets weaker. My mother was cloned from my grandmother. I was cloned from my mother, but the process is not perfect. Each copy loses something." She sat down across from him. "The scientists say maybe 5 more generations before we start having serious problems. Maybe less." "What happened to your males?" asked. "Said they went extinct, but how?" His face became sad. "A plague. It started on our 550 years ago. It only affected males. At first they just became sick. Then they could not have children. Then they started dying. Our scientists tried everything, but nothing worked. Within 50 years every male was dead." She looked down at her hands. "Some of our people gave up. They said it was the end. But others, like's grandmother, who was the first commander of this ship, they refused to accept death. They built the eternal dawn and filled it with our best scientists, our strongest women, our most precious genetic samples. They launched us into space to find a cure or a new home." 500 years, whispered. "You've been traveling for 500 years." "Yes, we have visited 43 different worlds. We found many species, made some friends, learned much about the universe. But we never found a cure for our plague. And we never found another species compatible with our genetics." Looked at him with those ancient young eyes. "Until you walked onto our ship." The door opened again and Commander entered with another woman. This one was stern-looking, with dark silver hair pulled back tight. Her uniform had more markings than the others. Said, "This is Officer, my second in command. She needs to explain our situation." Did not look happy. She stood with her arms crossed and spoke in a sharp voice. "In 3 weeks we will reach the fold. It is a spatial anomaly that will transport us to another galaxy. We have been traveling toward it for 80 years. Once we enter, we cannot return. The journey is one way only." Felt his stomach drop. 3 weeks, I have to get back before then. My family, my job, my life. "We cannot turn back," interrupted. "The fold is unstable. If we do not enter within the window, it will collapse. This is our only chance to reach a new galaxy, a place where we might find worlds to settle, where we might find a future." "But I didn't choose this," stood up, anger rising in his chest. "I made a mistake. I got on the wrong ship. You can't just take me to another galaxy." "We know," said softly. "And I am sorry, but turning back now means we lose everything. 80 years of travel, our last hope, 3,000 lives." "What about my life?" shouted. The room went silent, looked like she might cry. His jaw was tight, just looked tired. "You are right," finally said. "This is not fair to you, but nothing about our situation is fair. Nothing about watching your entire species die is fair. Nothing about 500 years of searching is fair." She met his eyes. "But we are asking anyway. We are begging, because you might be the answer we have been looking for." "I don't understand," said. "I'm human. We're not the same species. How could I possibly help you?" Gestured to the air, and a holographic display appeared. It showed strands of genetic code, complex diagrams that barely understood. "Our scientists have been studying the data we collected from your clothing, your skin cells, your hair. Human genetics are remarkable. Your species evolved on a world with incredible diversity, faced countless challenges, adapted to almost every environment on your planet." The display changed, showing human DNA next to DNA. "You are not compatible for natural reproduction, but your genetic material has properties we have never seen before. A flexibility, a resilience. Our lead scientist believes human genes could be used as a catalyst in our cloning process. They could introduce variation, strength, new possibilities." "Could be," said sharply. "We do not know if it will work. This is theory, not fact." "It is more hope than we have had in 500 years, replied. His mind was racing. "Even if it works, you're talking about years of research, right? Decades maybe." "Yes," admitted. "This is not a quick solution, but it is a solution, the first real one we have found." "Let me contact my people," said. "Let me send a message to my sister. She works with alien genetics. Maybe she can help. Maybe there's another way." Shook her head. "We are too far from the station now. Normal communication will not reach them." "But we have a quantum relay," said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. "The emergency system. It can send one message across vast distances, but it uses enormous power. We have been saving it for when we reach the fold to send back data to anyone who might be listening." Was quiet for a long moment. "If we use it now, we might not have enough power to send our final report." "But we might save him," said, "and maybe his people can help us. Humans are good at solving problems, right? That is what all the stories say." Looked at the young woman who was 127 years old. "What stories?" Smiled for the first time. "We have been listening to human broadcasts for 200 years. Your music, your shows, your news. Humans never give up. You always find a way. That is what makes you special." Made a disgusted sound. "Stories. We are basing our decisions on stories now." "Yes," said firmly. She looked at. "We will give you access to the quantum relay. Contact your sister. Contact anyone who can help. We have 3 weeks before the fold. That is 3 weeks to find an answer, to find a way that does not require you to sacrifice everything." She stepped closer to him. "But you must understand. If no answer comes, if there is no other way, we are still going through the fold. We have to, for our people, for our future. Nodded slowly. I understand, and thank you for giving me a chance. As they left the meditation chamber, walked beside him. Do you think your sister can help? She asked. If anyone can, said, it's Jinnah. She's the person I know. He just hoped she would get his message in time. Jinnah was in her laboratory when the message arrived. She was studying cell samples from a species that lived in methane atmospheres when her terminal started screaming with alerts. Quantum relay transmission. Emergency priority. Source. Deep space. She ran to the communication station and saw her brother's face appear on the screen. He looked exhausted and scared. Jinnah, if you're getting this, I don't have much time. I made a mistake. I got on the wrong ship and now I'm on an alien vessel called the Eternal Dawn. And they have a problem. A big problem. For the next 10 minutes explained everything. The 500 years, the extinct males, the fold, the 3-week deadline. Jinnah listened with growing horror and fascination. I'm sending you their genetic data, said. Everything their scientists have collected. Jinnah, they think human genetics might be able to help them, but they don't know how. I need you to look at this. I need you to tell me if there's any truth to it, because if there isn't, his voice broke. In 3 weeks, I'm going to another galaxy and I'll never see you again. The screen went dark. Data started flooding into Jinnah's system. Terabytes of genetic information, research notes in alien languages that the computer slowly translated, 500 years of desperate science. Jinnah sat down hard in her chair. Her baby brother was on an alien ship headed toward a one-way trip to another galaxy, and he was asking her to save him. She grabbed her communicator. Wu, drop everything and get to my lab now. Bring every genetic specialist we have. This is an emergency. Wu arrived 15 minutes later with 6 other scientists. He was a tall man with glasses that were always sliding down his nose. He had worked with Jinnah for 5 years and trusted her completely. What's the emergency? Jinnah explained while her fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up genetic charts and data. The scientists stood in shocked silence. That's impossible, one of them finally said. Human genetics helping an alien species reproduce. We're not even from the same planet, let alone the same evolutionary tree. Look at the data, Jinnah snapped. Stop thinking about what's impossible and start thinking about what might be possible. They worked for 3 days straight. Coffee cups piled up. The other scientists took turns sleeping while Jinnah refused to stop. She mapped human DNA against DNA, looking for any point of connection, any possibility. On the 3rd day, Wu made a sound and everyone rushed to his station. Look at this, he said, pointing to his screen. Cloning works by taking genetic material and using a catalyst to activate cell division. Their catalyst is usually male genetic material, but it's been 500 years since they had any fresh samples. The old samples are degraded, weak. We know this, Jinnah said impatiently. But look what happens when I run a simulation using human genetic material as the catalyst. Wu pressed a button and the screen exploded with color. Human genes have this flexibility, this adaptability. We evolved on Earth, which threw everything at us. Ice ages, plagues, environmental changes. Our genetics learned to adapt, to be flexible. The simulation showed human genetic material mixing with cellular structures. It was not perfect. It was messy and chaotic, but it worked. It introduces variation, another scientist said, staring at the screen. Every time they clone using human catalyst, the result would be slightly different, stronger, more diverse. It would not be reproduction, Wu said carefully. The children would still cloned from mothers, but they would be healthier. The genetic degradation would stop, maybe even reverse. Jinnah felt tears running down her face. It could save them. But there's a problem, Wu said quietly. It requires fresh human genetic material, regularly. The samples need to be viable, living. Old samples would not work any better than their degraded samples. The room went silent as they all understood what that meant. Would have to stay with them, Jinna whispered. He would have to go through the fold. He would have to live with them, provide samples, help them for years, maybe decades. It is not just about him, another scientist said. One person's genetic material would help, but for real diversity, for the best chance, they would need multiple humans, different genetic backgrounds. Jinna sat back in her chair, her mind racing. They had found an answer, but it was not the answer wanted. It was not the answer she wanted. Her brother would have to leave everything behind, his home, his life, his family. She looked at the data on her screens, at 500 years of desperate searching by an entire species. 3,000 women who had never given up hope. A young woman named who was 127 years old and might finally have a future. We need to take this to the council, Jinna said, right now. The Human Colonial Council met in emergency session. Jinna presented the data to the 12 council members. She explained the situation, the genetic solution, the 3-week deadline. She tried to keep her voice steady when she talked about her brother. The council members argued for hours. Some said it was not humanity's problem. Others said sending people on a one-way trip to another galaxy was insane. A few said they should try to send a rescue ship to stop the eternal dawn before it reached the fold. Finally, council leader stood up. She was an old woman who had survived Earth's last war and helped found the colony. "Let me tell you what I see," she said. "I see a species that refused to die. Women who have traveled for 500 years looking for hope. They never gave up. They never stopped searching. And now, by accident or by fate, they found us." She looked around the room. Humanity has been to the edge of extinction. We know what it feels like to face the end. We know what it means to struggle for survival. And now we have a chance to help another species live. Not by fighting, not by conquering, but by giving. "You are asking people to volunteer for a one-way trip," one council member said. "Yes," replied, "and I believe people will volunteer, because that is what humans do. We help, we reach out, we refuse to let others suffer when we can do something about it." The vote was 8-4 in favor. The council would send out a call for volunteers. Scientists, doctors, engineers, people willing to make the journey through the fold, people willing to give them a future. The call went out across all human colonies within communication range. They had 2 weeks to gather volunteers and reach the fold. Jinna sent a message back through the quantum relay. "We found a way, it works. Human genetics can help them, but you need to know something. You won't be alone. Help is coming. Humanity is coming." She included all the data, all the research, everything they would need. Then she did something the council did not know about. She put her own name on the volunteer list. Because was her baby brother, and she was not going to let him face another galaxy alone. On the eternal dawn received Jinna's message. He read it 3 times, unable to believe what he was seeing. A solution, a real solution, and humans were coming to help. He found Commander in the ship's garden, a place where the grew plants from their lost. She was touching the leaves of a tree that was 500 years old, carried from their planet as a seedling. "They're coming," said, "my people. They're sending a ship with volunteers, scientists who can help you, people willing to make the journey." Turned to him and tears were flowing down her face. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would they do this? They barely know us. This is not their fight." Thought about everything Jinna had written, about council leaders' speech, about the 50 people who had already volunteered in just the first few hours. "Because," he said, "that's what humans do. We help, even when it's hard, even when it costs us everything. We don't abandon people who need us." Looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised him. She hugged him. It was awkward because she was so much taller, but hugged her back. 500 years, she said softly. 500 years of searching. and we find hope in a human who boarded the wrong ship. Maybe it was the right ship, said. Maybe I was always supposed to be here. The human ship New Dawn arrived at the edge of the fold with 36 hours to spare. It was not a military vessel or a luxury transport. It was a colony ship, built to carry families and equipment to new worlds. Now it carried 50 human volunteers and enough genetic laboratories to give them a future. Captain Jin stood on the bridge, looking at the readings. The fold was beautiful and terrifying. Space twisted and folded in on itself, creating colors that should not exist. Lightning that was not lightning crackled through the darkness. The scanner showed it was already starting to collapse. "We are not going to make it," his navigation officer said quietly. "The fold is destabilizing faster than predicted. At our current speed, it will close 12 minutes before we reach it." Jin clenched his jaw. They had come so far. 50 people had left everything behind, said goodbye to families they would never see again, all to help a species they had never met. And now they were going to fail because their ship was too slow. "Contact the Eternal Dawn," Jin said. The communication channel opened, and Commander's face appeared on the screen. Jin had spoken with her several times during the journey, but this was the first time he saw fear in her eyes. "Captain Jin said, our sensors show the fold collapsing. You are not going to make it." "I know," Jin said, "but you will. Your ship is fast enough. You need to go through now while you still can." "We cannot leave you behind," said. "You can and you must," Jin replied. "You have 3,000 people depending on you. My crew knew the risks when we volunteered. Save your people, Commander, that's an order." His face showed pain that Jin had never seen before. "After everything, after your people came all this way to help us, we just abandoned you." "You are not abandoning us," Jin said. "You are surviving, that's what we wanted, that's why we came." On the Eternal Dawn stood beside on the bridge. He had heard everything. Around him the crew stood in silence, some with tears on their faces. "No," said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. "There's another way." He started. "Your ship," interrupted. "It's made of living crystal, right? It can grow and repair itself. Can it grow to connect with another ship?" The chief engineer, an older woman named, stepped forward. "In theory, yes. Our ancestors designed the ship to bond with structures, to grow and adapt. But connecting to an alien ship, one made of metal and different materials, it has never been attempted." "Can we try?" asked. Looked at then at the readings of the collapsing fold. "If we bond our ship to theirs, we can use our engines to help pull them through. But the process is dangerous. The bonding requires us to share our ship's core. If something goes wrong, both ships could be destroyed." "And if we do nothing, the humans die," said. Officer, who had been standing quietly, spoke up. "The core is sacred. It contains genetic material from our DNA samples from the males we lost, historical data going back thousands of years. It is the most precious thing we have." "What good is it if we let 50 people die to protect it?" said. She had been working in the medical bay but had come to the bridge when she heard about the New Dawn's problem. "These humans left their entire lives to help us. They were willing to travel to another galaxy for people they never met. And we are going to let them die because we are afraid." Looked at her crew. She saw hope and fear and determination. 500 years of loss had made them cautious, but they had also made them understand the value of sacrifice. "Open the core," said. "We are going to save them." Moved to her station and began entering commands. Deep in the heart of the Eternal Dawn, systems that had not been activated in centuries came to life. The ship's crystal structure began to glow brighter. "Captain Jin said over the communication channel, "We are going to attempt a bonding. We will grow our ship to connect with yours. You need to cut all power to your engines and trust us." Jin did not hesitate, understood cutting power now. The New Dawn went dark except for life support. On the Eternal Dawn, was working faster than had ever seen anyone work. Her fingers danced across controls that were part keyboard and part living interface. Extending growth tendrils said, "Contact in 30 seconds." Through saw something impossible. The crystal structure of the eternal dawn was growing, reaching out like branches from a tree. The tendrils extended through space toward the new dawn, glowing with blue light. 20 seconds. The fold is collapsing faster. We have maybe 20 minutes before it closes completely. The first tendril touched the new dawn's hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the crystal began to spread, flowing over the metal like water, bonding with it, becoming part of it. "It's working," shouted. More tendrils reached out, connecting the two ships at a dozen points. The crystal created bridges between them, strong and flexible. The new dawn began to glow with the same blue light as the eternal dawn. "Structural integrity holding on both ships," reported. "Activating shared engines in 3, 2, 1. The eternal dawn's powerful engines roared to life, but now they were pulling both ships. The linked vessels began to accelerate toward the fold. On the new dawn, Captain Jin watched his displays in amazement. "Our hull is bonding with theirs at the molecular level. I have never seen anything like this. It's beautiful." Saw Bin, one of the human engineers from the new dawn, appear on a secondary communication channel. The young man looked excited rather than scared. "This is incredible. Our ship is becoming part of yours. The crystal is integrating with our systems. It's like our ships are becoming one ship." 10 minutes to the fold, said, "But we are accelerating, we might make it." The ships moved faster, pulled by the combined effort of human engineering and biotechnology. The crystal bridges between them glowed brighter, strengthening with each second. 5 minutes, said, her voice was tense. "The fold is collapsing, its edges shrinking." Looked at the fold was beautiful and terrible. Space folded in on itself, creating a tunnel to another galaxy. But the tunnel was getting smaller, the edges crackling with energy that looked angry. "We are not going to fit," said quietly. "Both ships together are too wide." Looked at the readings. Was right. The fold opening was now too small for the linked ships to pass through side by side. "Rotate the ships," Bin's voice came over the channel. He had been listening to everything. "Turn us perpendicular to the fold. Make us longer and thinner. We'll fit if we go through lengthwise." "That will put enormous stress on the connection points," said. "Then make them stronger," Bin replied. "I'm sending you our ship's structural data. Show your crystal where we need reinforcement." Watched as and Bin worked together across the communication channel. A human engineer and an engineer, two people who had never met until days ago, working as one to save both their crews. "Rotating now," said. The ships began to turn, the crystal bridges adjusting and reinforcing as they moved. The linked vessels became one long structure, pointed like an arrow at the fold. 2 minutes, said. "This is going to be close." Everyone on both ships held their breath. The linked vessels accelerated toward the collapsing fold. The opening was shrinking every second. Grab's hand, he held it tight. 30 seconds. The ships entered the fold. Reality twisted around them. Colors that did not exist filled the. Time seemed to stretch and compress. Felt like he was being pulled apart and put back together. The fold screamed as it collapsed behind them, just meters from the rear of the new dawn. Lightning chased them through the tunnel between galaxies. The crystal bridges glowed so bright they were almost white, holding both ships together through forces that tried to tear them apart. Then suddenly they were through. They showed normal space again, but it was not the space they had left. The stars were different. The constellations were new. They were in another galaxy. Both ships had made it through together. "Hull integrity holding," reported. She sounded stunned. "Both ships are intact. The bonding is stable. We did it." On the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, the crew erupted in celebration. On the new dawn, the humans were cheering. The communication channels filled with voices, laughter, tears of relief and joy. Stood and looked at. You saved them. Your idea saved them all. We saved them, corrected. Together and human working together. Captain Jin's face appeared on the main screen. He was smiling wider than had ever seen. Commander, it seems our ships have become quite attached to each other. What do you say we keep them this way? At least until we find a good world to settle. Laughed and realized it was the first time he had heard her really laugh. I think that is an excellent idea, Captain. Welcome to the new galaxy, all of us, together. 10 years had passed since the two ships came through the fold together. The settlement of New Haven spread across the Green Valley like a promise kept. Buildings made of both human metal and crystal stood side by side, creating architecture that was both functional and beautiful. Gardens grew everywhere, mixing plants from Earth, and from this new world they had discovered. Stood on a hill overlooking the settlement, watching the sun set. It was a yellow sun, similar to Earth's, and it painted the sky in colors that reminded him of home. But this was home now, had been for 10 years. Still thinking about Earth, a voice asked. Turned and smiled. Jinnah walked up beside him, her hair longer than he remembered it being before. She had become the settlement's chief geneticist, working with the scientists to perfect the integration of human genetic material into their cloning process. Sometimes, admitted, I miss it, but I don't regret staying. Me neither, Jinnah said. She pointed to the settlement below, where children were playing in the gardens. Children, the first generation born with human genetic catalyst. They were healthy and strong, each one slightly different from the others. Real diversity after 500 years of identical clones. 17 children so far, Jinnah said, and 20 more in development. The success rate keeps improving. Wu thinks we might be able to expand the program next year. Saw among the children. She was teaching them about the old, telling stories that had been passed down for 500 years. She looked happy. They all did. Did you ever think, said, when I sent you that first message, that it would lead to all this? Jinnah laughed. When you sent me a message saying you were on an alien ship full of women who hadn't seen a man in 500 years. No, I definitely did not picture this. They watched as more people joined the children in the gardens. Humans and working together, playing together, living together. Captain Jin was there with his wife, who had been one of the volunteers. Bin the engineer was showing some his latest hybrid technology, a device that combined human computers with biotech. The council back home is calling it the greatest success story in human history, Jinnah said. Ambassador visited last year and said we should write a book about it. What would we call it? Asked. I don't know. How to accidentally save a species. The wrong ship, the right choice. Laughed. Movement caught his eye and he saw Commander walking toward them. She moved with the same grace she had 10 years ago, but there was something different about her now. She looked lighter, like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Jinnah said as she reached them, I was looking for you. The scouts have returned from the northern continent. They found something. What kind of something? Jinnah asked. Ruins, said, her eyes shining with excitement. Ancient structures, not human. Another species lived on this world once, long ago. Felt a chill. They had surveyed the planet extensively before settling. There had been no signs of intelligent life. What happened to them? We don't know yet, said, but is leading an expedition to study the ruins tomorrow. I thought you might want to join them. Absolutely, said. Even after 10 years, this galaxy still held mysteries. Smiled and looked out at the settlement. 10 years ago, I was the commander of a dying people. We had been searching for 500 years and found nothing but disappointment. Now look at us. Children playing. Two species building a future together. A whole galaxy to explore. All because someone boarded the wrong ship, Jinnah said. The right ship, corrected gently. It was always the right ship. Fate, chance, destiny, whatever you want to call it. The universe brought you to us exactly when we needed you most. Thought about that day 10 years ago. How tired he had been. How he had been looking at his instead of paying attention. How he had walked through the wrong door and changed everything. You know what the funny thing is, he said. I spent 3 years working at that station, inspecting cargo, checking manifests, following procedures. I was so careful about everything. And the one time I made a mistake, the one time I wasn't paying attention, that's when everything changed. Humans have a saying, Jinnah said, happy accidents. They have a similar concept, added. We call it blessed chaos. The idea that sometimes disorder and chance can create something more beautiful than any plan. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the settlement as day turned to night. Lights began to glow in the buildings below. Human electric lights and bioluminescence, creating a warm glow that spread through the valley. Climbed the hill to join them. She was carrying and looked excited. You need to see this. The astronomy team picked up something. Signals, organized patterns, from another star system in this galaxy. Took thee and looked at the data. His heart began to race. This is artificial. Someone is transmitting. Another species breathed. In this galaxy. We're not alone here, Jinnah said. For a moment, fear flickered across face. 500 years of searching had made them cautious. They had met many species, and not all had been friendly. But then smiled. We should try to contact them. Maybe they need help. Maybe we can help them the way the humans helped us. Looked at the young woman who had been 127 when they met and was now 137. She had lived through the entire journey to this galaxy, had seen her people brought back from the edge of extinction, and instead of being afraid, she wanted to help others. That's very human of you, he said with a smile. And very, added proudly. Captain Jin joined them on the hill, breathing hard from the climb. He was older now, his hair going gray, but his eyes were still sharp. I heard about the signals. When do we leave? Leave asked. To investigate, Jin said. To make contact. We have 2 ships bonded together that can travel anywhere in this galaxy. We have humans and who have learned to work as one crew. We have knowledge, resources, and goodwill. Seems to me we have a responsibility to reach out. Thought about how far they had come. From a desperate species searching for hope to a thriving community ready to explore and help others. From 2 separate peoples to one unified settlement. From fear and hunger to cooperation and abundance. The eternal dawn was built to search for a cure, said slowly. We found more than that. We found partners, family, a future, but maybe our journey is not over. Maybe this is the next chapter. The new dawn brought volunteers to help a species in need, Jin added. That mission does not end just because we found a home. There might be others out there who need help, others searching for hope the way they searched for 500 years. Jinnah looked at her brother. You know, when you called me 10 years ago and said you were on an alien ship, I thought my job was to save you, to bring you home. But you taught me something. Sometimes saving someone means going with them, not pulling them back. So we go together, said, all of us, human, and to meet whoever is sending those signals, to help if we can, to make friends if they'll have us. Put her hand on shoulder. The man who boarded the wrong ship, look what you started. Shook his head. I just made a mistake. You all are the ones who turned it into something amazing. No, Jinnah said firmly. You made a choice. Every day for 10 years you chose to stay to help to build something new. That was not a mistake. That was courage. Below them, the settlement of New Haven glowed in the darkness. Children slept safely. Scientists worked on new discoveries. Engineers built new wonders. Farmers tended gardens that grew food from 3 different worlds. All of it possible because one tired human had walked through the wrong door. We will need to prepare, said, shifting into commander mode. The journey to that star system will take months. We need supplies, volunteers, protocols for first contact. And we need to make sure the settlement can function without us, Jin added. There are plenty of people who can lead while we are gone. We'll stay, said. She has always preferred building to exploring, and someone needs to look after the children. They talked late into the night, making plans for this new journey. By the time they descended the hill, the outline of their mission was clear. A crew of both humans and would take the bonded ships to investigate the signals. They would make contact carefully, peacefully, and if whoever was transmitting needed help, they would offer it. Because that was what they had learned. That was the gift humans had given thee and had given the humans. The understanding that intelligence in the universe did not have to mean competition or conflict. It could mean cooperation, partnership, family. Looked back at the hill where they had stood. Somewhere out there across impossible distances was Earth, his birthplace, the cradle of humanity. Part of him would always miss it. But here, in this new galaxy, in this settlement built by two species working together, surrounded by friends who were human, and with mysteries to explore and people to help, had found something he never expected. He had found home. And the journey was just beginning.